So let's talk about building relationships with your profitable customers and the bonding activities that are used to strengthen those relationships. First, a couple of quick quotes. Tina Turner, from her famous song, "Oh, what's love got to do with it? What's love but a secondhand emotion?" From Mary Smith, the queen of Facebook marketing, "Consumers are sharing vast amounts of information about themselves online, and as a savvy marketer, you can use that in a creative and respectful way to actually reach out and forge relationships and deepen existing ones." Jay Deich, marketing expert, "I view relationship marketing as a brand's ability to create an emotional connection with the consumer." And then Simon Sinek, 100% of customers are people, 100% of employees are people. If you don't understand people, you don't understand business. And of course, this is the focus on the whole notion of creating those personal relationships with your customers and the importance of your employees in making that happen. So remember that the whole point behind building relationships with your most profitable customers is all about making the firm more profitable. This can be explained with the famous leaky bucket analogy. This is first suggested by Russ Woodward, an Experian consultant. And he describes it sort of this way. Every time you lose a customer, they have to be replaced by an equally profitable customer just to break even. So the university at UNLV, 30% of our students leave the university every year. That means that we have to acquire 30% more students every single year to just keep our enrollments where they're at. Think what would happen if we made all that effort to increase enrollments and acquire new students and were able to keep more of them. Well, of course, our enrollments would then go up. So imagine a bucket of water to wash your car, but the only bucket you have has a whole bunch of holes in it. Well, it seems like you've got three options, right? One is you can keep putting more water in the bucket. Second, you can fix the holes. Or third, you can buy a brand new bucket. Well, option one requires a lot of effort and is highly inefficient. And option three might be too expensive. So you're left with option two. Well, how do you go about fixing those holes? Well, the leaky customer bucket problem goes like this. Customers that experience customers loss have the same problem. But you must employ a strategy to try to solve the loss of customers by trying to refill the bucket with lots of new customers, replace the ones you have that leave via the holes. And of course, companies that do this really spend a lot of money and a lot of advertising dollars on acquiring new customers. Many companies spend their whole marketing budget on acquisition and end up with very little profitable growth because they've lost so many customers. In fact, they might not even be able to keep the bucket full of customers. That is, their customer base might actually shrink even though they are acquiring a substantial number of new customers every year. Plus, they might run out of customers if they are geographically bound. Plus, the refilling of the leaky bucket approach is a very expensive way to run a business. Relationship marketing is all about fixing the holes. With the cost of acquiring new customers ever increasing, it is crucial that we figure out ways to retain our current profitable customers. Another example that we like to talk about when we talk about relationship marketing is the corner grocery store. Now, this might not seem very logical to some of you, but you can replace the corner grocery store with whatever other store was by your house when you were a little kid growing up. When I was a young lad growing up, the local corner grocery store by our house was called Harrison's, and it's because the Harrison family owned it. Now, there was a supermarket, and the supermarket was out, on the edge of town. But if our family needed something right away, we would simply go down the street. It was easily no more than a half a mile, maybe even a quarter of a mile away from our house by bicycle, and pick things up. My mom had grown up in this town, so she knew everyone in town, and of course we knew the Harrisons. Of course, everything at the corner grocery store was more expensive than it was at the supermarket, but that didn't matter. We always tried to spend some money at the local corner grocery store because we had a relationship with them. Well, what was it that Bill Harrison and his family did to create that relationship with our family? Well, first, they knew all about you. They knew what you liked. And in fact, they might even stock products for you if you said, we always buy this instead of that. They would actually go through the trouble of stocking that product for you. They made you feel important. They always thanked you for being a valued customer, and they always tried to make you feel that you were welcome at the store. They gave you stuff as a reward for being a good customer. Harrison's was famous for throwing an extra can of peaches in the bag every single time you would go to the store. And of course, that was sort of their little thing. Of course, at our house, then we had a basement about half full of cans of peaches, but it was the whole notion that they made you sure that you understood that they were thanking you. They provided you with special information. For example, my mom might go in and say, give us 3 T-bone steaks. And instead of T-bone steaks, Bill might say, well, the porterhouse steaks are cheaper, and I think that they're better this week. Or he might say, if you wait till next week, we're going to have them on sale, providing you with a little extra information so that you felt like you were a little bit more of a special customer. And they would give you credit. You could run a bill at the grocery store. My mom might say to me, go down and get a jar of mayonnaise. And I would pedal my little bike down to the grocery store. And I'd walk in and I would say to Mr. Harrison, my mom wants a jar of mayonnaise. And he would say, well, it's over there on the third little aisle over there. And so I'd go over and get the mayonnaise and I'd bring it to the counter. And he would say, no, your mom doesn't buy Heilmann's mayonnaise, your mom uses Kraft mayonnaise. So I'd go back and get the bottle of Kraft mayonnaise and I'd bring it to the counter, and he would say, okay, very good, and he'd put it in a bag and he'd give it to me. I never paid him any money, and of course the reason was that he just simply put it on our bill, our credit bill. So had a sort of a running bill with the Harrisons at their grocery store. Well, you probably have built relationships with some businesses yourself. It might be your auto mechanic. It might be your beautician or barber, or it might be your doctor, or it might be your lawyer, or it might be someone else. It might be the person who you buy your bicycles from, or it might be someone who, whoever it might be. Think about how they have built relationships with you over time. And think about how that relationship has been strengthened over time. That's really what relationship marketing is all about. So, how does a firm actually go about building those relationships with its best customers? Well, there are at least 5 characteristics associated with building that kind of a relationship. First, a relationship has to be mutually beneficial. Second, you have to be a satisfied customer. Remember, we talked about satisfaction models in a previous lecture. So if you don't remember that, make sure and go back and reread the information about satisfaction. There has to be commitment and loyalty on both sides. There has to be, the relationship has to reduce risks for both parties. So from your perspective, it might be reducing risk in terms of the different kinds of risks that are available, and we'll talk about that. But from the business's side, it might be reducing risk in terms of bouncing checks or whatever else the issue might be. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, at the end of the day, there has to be mutual trust. All right, so let's talk about mutually beneficial. It's reciprocal and synergistic relationships. They have to be win-win relationships. Relationship building takes time and effort and typically maybe even short-term financial sacrifice. Um, Both parties need to understand the value to them of building that relationship. It's got to be a win-win for both sides. It's got to have trust and risk reduction. And of course, an example of this would be someone like my auto mechanic. Now, my auto mechanic's name is Tracy. Tracy's been in business for a long time. I met Tracy when I first moved to Las Vegas, 30 some years ago. And he's been fixing cars for me ever since. But we have a really strong relationship. And it's mutually beneficial. I give him all of my auto mechanic business, and so I'm a loyal customer. I pay my bills on time, and I make referrals to him for people to have their cars fixed. On the other hand, it's beneficial to me. It's a risk reduction aspect for me. I know that Tracy will fix the car right, and if for some reason it doesn't get fixed right the first time, he'll stand behind his work and the parts and make it right. And of course, I trust them not to try to rip me off. And so an auto mechanic is a good example of a relationship where it is mutually beneficial. The other aspect of this, and one that I had just mentioned, was this idea of risk reduction and the notion of perceived risk. Perceived risk refers to the customer's perception of the risks associated with any purchase. And some of those risks include functional risks, or we might refer to it as performance risk. This is the notion that that the mechanic is going to fix my car, but it's not actually going to be fixed. There is a physical risk. That is a risk that the product, after he fixes it, won't work right, and I'll get in a wreck or something bad will happen to me when I'm driving the car. There's a financial risk. And of course, with the auto mechanic, you know that sometimes the bills can get relatively high, and so there's a financial risk. There's a social risk. That is, the product results in embarrassment from others. There's a psychological risk. That is, the product affects my mental well-being. And the psychological risk is that he said he fixed it, but did he really fix it? Is it really not going to break down again? And then there's time risk. That is, the failure of the product results in an opportunity cost of finding another satisfactory product, or the notion of time risk in that I leave my car with him, but it doesn't actually get fixed, and then I have to figure out something else. And then, of course, let's talk a little bit about trust. How do you build trust? Well, of course, the basic notion for building trust is something that we all learned as little kids, the golden rule. That is, treat your customers in the manner that you would like to be treated. If you want to build relationships with your customer, treat your customers as if they were friends of yours, not just customers. Next, for building trust, make promises and keep promises. It's real easy to make a promise. We'll have it for you on Friday, but it's more difficult to actually keep those promises. Another way to build trust, take time to learn about your customers, their needs, their preferences, and their criteria for making selections. Communicate with them. And that means two-way communication, not simply one-way communication. Another way to build trust is the norm effect. That is, make sure that your customers know that they are important to you. Next, thank your customers. Think about soft benefits to thank them. Soft benefits are things that don't cost your business very much money, but your customers find very valuable. And we used this example before. That might be something like preferred parking. What does it cost for a casino to have preferred parking for its best customers? The answer is, I don't know, a couple of dollars to find some barriers, to move some barriers around to create a preferred parking lot. Another thing might be a VIP line or something like that. And so, many cases, things that don't cost you much are very important to your customers. And then, of course, finally, the last thing to build trust, resolve complaints quickly. Pay attention to your customers. All right, so building relationship. All right, the common thread through all the relationship marketing literature is the emphasis on marketing activities oriented towards building strong, lasting relationships with individual customers. And so the relationship needs to be built one-to-one. Most of the research on relationship marketing suggests that this is accomplished through relationship bonding activities. Developing bonds between the customer and the company is central to fostering long-term relationships. And of course, over time, these relationships tend to get stronger if the bonds are maintained and enforced or reinforced. All right, so the customer relationship marketing framework that we're using refers to three kinds of bonding activities. Financial or functional bondings. These are programs that make it financially or functionally logical to start or continue a relationship. Social bonding. These are activities and programs designed to get close to your customers. And then structural bonding activities, products and services that make the good or service special and make it difficult to leave the relationship. And here we have a little chart showing the relationship marketing model. And we might notice that financial bonds are perhaps the weakest and structural bonds are perhaps the strongest. But also notice that, that there tends to be a hierarchical notion in here, but that the bonding activities tend to be synergistic. That is, that financial bonding activities along with social bonding activities, along with structural bonding activities, is greater than just the sum of the three parts. They actually become multiplicative in their ability to build and strengthen relationships over time. So in summary, if you don't know your customers, you can't build relationships with them. If you don't like your customers, you can't build relationships with them. My example of this, by the way, is Kmart. We refer to Kmart as, of course, Kmart is now bankrupt and virtually all their stores are gone. We used to refer to the executives at Walmart as the boys from Troy because Kmart was originally run out of Troy, Michigan. And the people who ran Walmart always considered their customers to be lower quality customers. And while they never said that out loud, the fact is that they always wanted more affluent, higher income customers. And as a result, they never really got close to their customers and they never really built relationships with them. And as a result, Kmart was mostly a transactional business, not one that built relationships with their customers. And then finally, if your employees don't understand the importance of relationship building, it will not happen.